to episode 2 of Full Circle Spotlight Stories from the Stage, the podcast that brings you into the heart of Full Circle players. I'm your host, Pierre van der Westhuizen, and today we're going to be doing a retrospective on our recent production of Shakespeare's Henry V, which ran in October at the Box in Riverside, California. We'd like to thank High Point Care Creative Arts Academy for generously allowing us to record in their studio today. They offer programs for film and media, music and recording, culinary arts, arts and crafts, and beauty and makeup. You can contact them at highpointcare.org or 951-226-8087. You can also contact them to use their studio to record your own podcasts, music, audiobooks, etc. In this episode, we'll dive into the production of this amazing play and explore the creative process that brought this incredible, true story to life on our stage. We'll hear from the director and cast members as they reflect on the challenges, triumphs, and unforgettable moments of this production. This episode will give you an inside look at how we turned one of Shakespeare's greatest historical plays into an experience that captivated our audiences. So sit back, relax, and let's take a final bow for Henry V before we move on to the next chapter in our theater journey. In the studio today are Wendy Johnson, J.K. Weldon, Stephanie Iglesias, and Ryan Barnes. We have some special thanks for sponsors and people that supported us during the production. I would like to thank Imperial Knights in Norco, who were our armorers. They provided us with armor and were extremely generous in providing us with just tons and tons of options for things to make the show look real. They actually have jousting tournaments every Tuesday. It's called Taco Tournament Tuesday, and it's Imperial Knights. Would love it if you went to support them. They're just fantastic people. They came to the show, sat in the front row, and were absolutely engrossed by what we did as well. So thank you to them for that. And then Wendy, I think we have some additional sponsors that we'd like to thank as well.
I'd like to thank the City of Riverside, who sponsor us through all of our work in the community. Really, really appreciate the City of Riverside and all of its arts and culture and its elements of parks and recreation and the public library system. We thank you very, very much. And Cardenas Supermarket was a sponsor this season. Also, thank you to all donors and sponsors who have helped us this year. Thank you so much for your support and continued support of our mission of Theater for All. Thank you.
First question, tell us a little about your theater background. Please introduce yourself and then give us your background. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Wendy Johnson, and I am the director of Henry V and the artistic director of Full Circle Players. My theater background goes all the way back to when I was 8 years old, and I have been doing theater obsessively since then, with little breaks in between. I have a master's degree in Shakespearean Studies and a master's degree in directing from Chicago Performing Arts College. And Henry V was my 100th play that I've directed.
Hi, I'm Stephanie Iglesias. I started doing theater when I was about 10, 11 years old. And I started with an after-school drama program at Clement Middle School. And I loved it so much. I thought I was going to be in tech. And then my theater teacher said no, that I needed to be on stage. So ever since then, I fell in love with it. I got my bachelor's degree of fine arts and musical theater. And now I teach choir in San Bernardino, and I've done lots of professional productions. I've done an original work in New York City. I've done summer stock shows in Ohio, Illinois, Indiana, and now I'm doing theater here in Southern California.
Good day to you, sir, and good day to everyone. My name is Jay Weldon, and I'm trying to top everybody else's experience already. I'm just a guy who wandered into a theater and was like, "This is cool," and just kind of been doing it ever since. I as I think about that, that's kind of true. I didn't go to school for it. I didn't start until late, but I've always wanted to be an entertainer. I always wanted to be a performer. I wanted to be a musician. I wanted to be a trumpet player, like a professional trumpet player. But I don't know. I got on stage once, kind of. I love the live audience energy, and just I've been with it ever since.
I'm Ryan Barnes, and my journey with theater, I think, started in grade school. I went to an elementary school that put up a lot of plays, and I was also very hands-on. Like when I was in grade school, I fell in love with the movie The Wizard of Oz and said, "Hey, we should do this," and showed up, and I was the only one who had the lines memorized going into auditions and was just really into it. And my mom said, "You know what? You're not just going to sit around all summer doing nothing. I'm going to enroll you in a theater camp." And I'm like, "What? No." And then that just started a 10-year journey that eventually led to me going to college in Azusa, where I got my bachelor's of fine arts in acting for the stage and screen. And then life happened, and I kind of stopped doing theater for a long time after that. And then just came back to it this last year, did a show at Riverside Community Players, and then Henry with Full Circle Players. And it has just been such a joy to be able to tap back into this part of myself because I realized how much I had been missing it.
Thank you, everyone.
We heard you, but we don't know your background.
Yeah, I suppose I should introduce myself as well. So I'm Pierre van der Westhuis, and my theater journey is also kind of unique. I performed when I was in high school, and then I took an extended break until probably the mid 2000s, 2008 or so, when I started performing in a show in Las Vegas called the Tournament of Kings, where I got to play Mordred the Evil Wizard. And I did that show for 15 years. And I would travel back and forth to Vegas to perform. And in about 2012, 13, my daughter was involved in a theater program, and they were doing The Little Mermaid. And at the time, because I was doing the show in Vegas, I had long hair and a goatee, and they were looking for a King Triton. And they said, "Well, would you like to try out for King Triton?" So I went in, and the director said, "Can you sing?" And I can sing. I grew up in a musical family, so I sang. And they're like, she's like, "Wow, you look the part. You can sing. If you want it, it's yours." So I did that show, and I was like, "Well, I'll do it one time, for fun." And I had this great moment on stage where I was in kind of this weird bubble where I felt like the character just became real for me. And I was like, "What was that? That was something incredible." I'm like, "I want to do that again." So then the director offered me a role and did The Sound of Music, and then we did Guys and Dolls. And so the whole thing just happened. And now 10 years later, I'm deeply into it. So, and then I joined Full Circle Players about 3 years ago. So I feel like I'm one of the veterans of the of the group because of it's how long has the program been around, Wendy? Now
We're going to be this is our fourth season.
the fourth season.
I mean, we technically have been around since 2019.
Yeah.
Because Othello was
Right.
the first play.
Let's play.
But it wasn't, that was just me, like, I want to do a show kind of thing. It was, I want to do a show kind of thing. I just had gotten this inspiration to do something. And so I was like, let's try it. And so, I mean, we actually started at the Fringe Festival in LA that summer before in 2019. And then we did Othello, and JK was in that, in Othello. And from there, we just, COVID happened. We were going to do Electra in 2020, and like COVID happened. And so we still did stuff, and we went and got our 501c3 during that time. And we did some radio stuff. We did a radio musical, and we did a new play festival online, and just try to keep that going. But none of that really counts. The real is Merry Wives of Windsor that we did in 2021. So that makes this is our fourth season. Real
Thank you.
He's the OG.
Wendy, I'm going to go back to you for a second. Can you tell us on how you decided on Henry V for this production? I know there's a story, so here we go.
Okay, so once upon a time, there was a little girl who went and saw Kenneth Branagh when she was in college in Henry V, after poo-pooing that Henry V because she was in love with Laurence Olivier and his theater stuff. And I went and saw it and I fell in love. And I saw it 17 times in the movie theater by myself in the front row often and with my best sister too. And it was overwhelmingly amazing. And, the thought of doing it or just even doing a history play seemed too epic. There's so many cogs and wheels, and Henry V is all battle. It is a battle. That's what the play is. The Battle of Agincourt. I thought, yeah, we're gonna keep all the histories over there, and then maybe we'll come into, an easy little history or something. But then when I knew I was doing my 100th play, I decided I needed something epic and something challenging. And so I thought, what the heck? Henry V is my favorite history, and so consequently, I just picked it up and I saw it again, and I was like, I'm so in love with this play, and I need to do it, and so that's basically why I decided, and it was epic, and it was filled with all kinds of stuff before any actor ever got to the rehearsal process. So a lot of some like I don't think I'm good enough. I don't know if I can do it. I don't think this is going to happen. So there was a lot of doubt. I like, what am I thinking? Are you freaking crazy? So a lot of that came in and into my mind as we went. But it definitely was an epic play for an epic moment in my journey as a theater artist.
I'm going to stick with you for the next question as well. Can you tell us a little bit about the script? Because there is the original script and then there's a script that's been modified. Can you tell us about the concept and how you came up with, or how you cut the script?
For me, Shakespeare needs to be accessible to audiences. It really is one of my passions since I was in early college at San Bernardino Valley College. My friend Alva was make the Shakespeare stuff easy to understand, is what he would say. And so this is something that's like a passion of mine. Shakespeare's message, his stories are, for me, it's always been easy to understand, but for most people, it's not. It's a language barrier. And it's really important to me that my students, I'm a theater educator, and it's important that my students grasp this. So for me, they grasp it, that they feel comfortable with it, that there's an access to something that's really challenging, and I feel that needs to happen in the community too. With our free Shakespeare in the Park, it's really important that it's accessible. So I've learned to over decades and decades. I mean, I've directed 100, well, 101 now, but 100 plays. But I would say over 60 of them are Shakespeare. And I've gotten pretty good at being able to cut. So taking a play that's 2 hours and 45 minutes, if it's a day, it's very long, and it also has so many things inside there that are not appropriate, in my opinion, or irrelevant to us in modern audiences. It's a political play. It was written to please the Queen of England, who this is her ancestor, and where she gets Queen Elizabeth got her claim to the throne through Henry V. So it's very important that it's all right, that it makes him out to look like he's the good guy. And there's some things, and they were not friends with the French. So there's a lot of issues with the different cultures in there, and doing, just like a lot of putting down of the French. They make the French look stupid. I mean, really, really, they don't make them look very good at all. And they're not. So I wanted to handle that. So that was really important. Kenneth Branagh's cutting is really, really brilliant. And it's like clean and crisp and understandable. And I took his cutting and then I modified that too in order to work. We're not in a movie. Movie's much easier to do. We're in a play and we're in a small black box. So being able to tell that story, then I had to go in additionally cut. And we have I wanted it with way less actors. He has infinite amount of actors. I have a 10. So how do we do this with this? And then we have to modify and cut. And even in the rehearsal process, we were still modifying and cutting as we went. But before that, I spent a good 4 months on that script, taking it and looking at it and modifying it to get it where even I'd want an artist to look at it. So yeah, it's a It's a journey, cutting Shakespeare.
All right, so this next one is for Jay. Henry V is such an epic character. Can you tell us a little bit of how you approach the role, how you spend time analyzing the character to bring it to life on stage?
Absolutely. Henry V was one of those is one of those shows that you see and it's like, oh, okay, I've seen Henry V, and then you see the movie and it's like, man, this is cool and stuff like that. So, you kind of get this image of Henry V, from the way he's always portrayed, kind of like Wendy said, he's shown as the Almighty, the good guy, the never failing and stuff like that. But I think the biggest thing that helped me prepare for this was understanding power. Um, the whole power dynamic of as witnessed as an audience member and as executed through Henry, it's literally two different sides of the coin. You see it, you see this mighty leader, this great battle, this sword wielding, hero, all this other good stuff, and the costume was amazing, by the way. Let me just throw that out there. I love that was my part. Uh, but but that powerful character that you see like is created through lots of humility, lots of falter, lots of like there's a lot that there's a lot of there's an old southern phrase I'm trying to remember. I can't do it. I can't remember it right now, but basically like there's a lot of ugly to get to the beauty, and he, I mean, gosh, like he's such a multifaceted, multi-dimensional character that like if you're not paying attention, you'll miss every transformation he goes through. Because I've seen this play stormed through, like it was a battle from the first scene to the love scene. Even the love scene was like I was like, all right, like damn right, give me a steak and a cigar or something, like man stuff. But then like to be to have the opportunity to be the character and create a character from Wendy's vision and I have to say like it would be impossible without Wendy. Like I wouldn't have even known where to begin. Um, I've I feel like I've played big parts before, but it just seems like Wendy makes it. I won't say easy because that's a lie, but but she makes like all the work is worth it. Like you never question if you're working for naught. Everything has an intention. There's a purpose, and I think understanding that power dynamic and knowing why the presentation of power, why does he appear like he's so good? Like, why is he so powerful? Why is he so strong? I mean, that's, iron sharpening iron kind of thing. And plus, he had a good support system around him. He had family, he had friends and stuff like that. And I think the humanity of him is the biggest difference from any king that I have seen on stage is the humanity aspect. And I wouldn't have even seen that myself if I hadn't had the opportunity to be the character.
I'm going to stick with you. There's one of my favorite, and many of the audience members that spoke to me afterwards as well said the St. Christmas Day speech is such an important speech. Historically, it's been used to motivate people going into battle. There's some phrases and words inside there that are just so beautifully iconic. Can you just talk about that speech and how it felt doing the speech? Because I know you have um, some uh, experience that you brought into that from your time in military, and I just want to see if you can talk about that for a second.
Yeah, definitely. Man, St. Christmas Day speech. It's one of those ones that you know it when you hear it, you love it usually when you hear it, and it was one of those ones I was very excited to actually perform in context. Um, I don't know where to start. I guess I can tell a story. I don't really talk about my military experience much, but I guess to understand, I guess to actually answer the question, um, uh, I went to my first combat deployment in 2006, and the biggest thing I remember about it was one of our senior leaders was like, "Bring headphones, bring headphones, something." He said, whatever. If you need to be calm right now, whatever calms you. If you need to be motivated right now, you need to be amped. Even if you need to be scared, play something. Because just like you're not going home. So the only way to get past this is to get through it. So here we go, kind of thing. And with that understanding of we got to get through it, I'm trying to imagine, us being out there outnumbered 5-1, and I can't, like I probably shouldn't say this, but there was never a point where I felt outmatched or outnumbered in combat. I mean, I'm kind of on the popular team, so it's like I never felt outmatched. I never felt outnumbered. I never felt like we were going to lose. I felt like any loss I suffered would be me, or those around me. But to go into a battle, man, outnumbered, knowing you're outmatched, no A. I don't know what to tell you, fellas. I mean, and to be a leader and have to stand up in front of your people and tell them that. Because I imagine that happening today and yeah, no. Like we probably just capture that guy and put him somewhere because he's talking crazy. Like let's put this guy in cuffs before he gets us all killed. But to have to stand up, and I think what I love about it the most, it is after the sequence that in which it came. Upon the king, the humbling, with his men at the camp. And then, God of battles, it's like, hey, I need something, man. I need something. What do you got? And to enter on the Christmas Day speech with the attitude of, hey, whatever it is going to be what it is. And I don't know about you, but I'm grabbing this thing and I'm going that way. And whatever's in my way is going down, kind of thing, and from the beginning, he even walked in, but who wishes for more? Who wishes for more men? Man, please. When we do this, not if, when we do this, oh man, hey, this is about to be it, like it's.
Hey, while you're in there, can you just say that the most iconic of lines from that speech?
All right,
I know it's in there, man. Just that one phrase.
Oh man, I haven't said these words since Saint Christmas Day. We, you, we happy you, we band of brothers. For he today that sheds his blood with me shall be my brother. Be he ne'er so vile, this day shall gentle his condition. And gentlemen in England now abed shall think themselves accursed that they were not here, and hold their manhood cheap, whilst any speaks that fought with us upon St. Crispin's Day.
Oh, man, I get chills. I get chills. Thank you. That was great. Okay, so my next question is for Ryan. You played several characters in the show. Can you tell us what it was like preparing and then performing? First, tell us who the characters were, and then just describe kind of the process of developing the character, and then what it was like performing, and even having to flip between characters backstage and change all those kinds of things.
Yeah, so I played Sir Thomas Grey, one of the traitors who Henry promptly gets rid of. And I also played Captain McMorris, the Irishman serving in Henry's army. And I probably shouldn't admit this, but I got really excited that I got cast as McMorris because when I was reading the play in preparation for the audition, McMorris was one of the characters that just jumped off the page at me, and I'm like, I love this guy. I really love this guy. And then getting into the audition and really just going at it, I'm like, I understand if I don't get cast in this show, but I will be very sad if I don't get to play this guy. So getting cast as him, I was like, yes. So I gravitated to McMorris a little bit more than I did Gray. But Gray was also one of those roles where I had to build the dynamic with Chris, with Romeo, as to how we moved as a unit in that scene as the traders. And really, I think it's just always coming back to, you don't necessarily have to like every character you play, but you have to justify why a character is doing what they're doing. You have to make that make sense in your head. And for me, the guiding light for Gray was either his position is secure the way things are, or he has a certain expectation of the kind of leader that Henry is. And Henry wanting to go off to war is like, oh, what are you doing? You're about to ruin everything, and I need to maintain my position, which is why it always got to the point where Jay had Romeo on the ground, just delivering that monologue, and my internal motivation was, oh my gosh, he's actually gonna do this. I just screwed up royally. And it was very easy to play that when, on multiple occasions, Wendy was graphically describing what happens to traders in this time. And it was like, okay, I understand. I understand the visual, and it's now sad that I'm thinking about this, but it was very effective. And McMorris, it was interesting because I picked up a couple of lines later on in the show that McMorris doesn't normally say, but he did say in our version. And it was about creating his arc, because he's on the outs of everybody, because he's an Irishman fighting for the English against the French. And he's basically there because he either has to preserve himself or has to preserve his family. And he's like, I'm going to do this to protect myself. And gradually watching the progression throughout the show, McMorris's arc, I feel like it mirrors how he's perceiving Henry. Because at the beginning, like when I'm standing there trying to not come off like I'm exhausted because I know scrutiny is going to be on me more than anyone else in the army, and Henry's out there talking about spitting babies on pikes, and I'm just like, these guys, they're all the same. This is just the side I have to be on to stay alive. But then you get to the moment in the camp when Henry walks by and I'm like, oh, I've got a bow. And Henry's like, no. And I'm like, oh, this is different. And then seeing him come down in the St. Crispin's Day speech, he doesn't have his crown on. He is in the trenches. He is with us. He is willing to fight alongside us. And that's something that I think is really impactful and moving, especially given the world we're in today, where regardless of where you fall on sides of thinking who should be leaders of what, we don't get a lot of leaders who are willing to like come down into the trenches with the people that they want to lead and being willing to stand by them as they're going through things. And that's something that's still probably the most resonant thing out of the show for me. And getting to have McMorris get to that point where it's like, maybe things aren't going to be 100% different for him now that Henry's king, but there is this hope that things are going to be heading in a better direction for him. And just where it culminated in, he's now comfortable enough to be singing No Nobis with the other guys, and there is this like sense of camaraderie that he wouldn't have felt at the beginning when he's just getting up in Llewellyn's face.
Okay, so this next one is for Wendy. Wendy, you briefly mentioned the battle. The play has an epic battle, probably one of the most epic battles in history. Can you tell us a little bit how you approached that and some of the inspirations for the way you put that battle scene together? Because being part of that and getting the audience reaction, I could hear them gasping at moments. It was incredibly dramatic, even on stage. So I can't even imagine what it was like for them to experience it. But can you just talk about that for a second?
Yes, of course. It was great to watch from the audience. I was thrilled every single time. Every single time I saw it, and as it grew, I was thrilled every single time. It lived up to my expectation. I think it went beyond what I thought when I was envisioning it. I personally love sword fighting. One of the reasons why I love theater is sword fighting, and really cool moments of movement and bringing together the physicality of the artist and the storytelling into something that is something you cannot get in a movie. So our society is so up into instant gratification and up in your face graphics and movies where everything is just revealed and open. And we in theater can't compete with that at all. So I don't want to compete. I want to do something different, but at the same time, thrilling and in your face where it feels like you're part of it. My goal as a director is to let the audience be part of it, that they're not separate watching passively, but involved in leaning into whatever that is. And I knew that the Battle of Agincourt, since the whole play leads to this moment, and it is a historically true experience. And the St. Crispin's Day speech that Jay spoke about, he did something similar to that, very similar to that historically. So needing it to have the weight and the I don't know, the coolness, it just really was important. So I knew how I wanted to set it up. And I had seen a video of the fight scene in The Outsiders on Broadway. And I'd seen it on an Instagram post before they open. And I was like, that's Agincourt. That's Agincourt. That's what I want. That's the visceral, raw, real moments that they do this da, 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 this feeling for me, and the music and all of it put together was so visceral for me that I needed that to be Agincourt. So I got lucky enough to the universe sent me to New York, and I got to go for free to go see The Outsiders on Broadway, and literally spent the whole time going, how can I take this and modify it to a sword fight? Because that's a fist fight. And I sat like walking home from the play, walking back to my hotel, just I walked out of the way. It was about an hour walk of just like, how can I take what I just saw and put this in to us with swords and fighting? And very slowly, it's just like I went, I've got it. And that was it. Like I knew how I was going to change it and how it's going to work and how it's going to go. And then my husband, who's our fight coordinator, was able to take it and get it cleaned up to what my vision was and put it in and modify it. It was probably one of the best sword fights I've done, and I really feel the audience really felt it too. And it was just, I think the cast did too. It was something special. It was, I don't think it can be recreated. You know, it was just so incredible, and I just, it just really kept that storyline going, and it took that climax of everything that they worked towards, and it really, I think, helped just bring us into the resolution, into the hope. I also really feel that it's important that we don't gloss over or make fun of things like battle and war. War is not fun and it is not cute and it's not right. People really are impacted in it, and killing children on stage is a real big thing because children die in war. And to me, I believe theater is to hold up a mirror to society, and I needed Agincourt to hold a mirror up to, that it couldn't be just Henry being and the French being all just, it's all cute at the end. It's not. And that was also important. So it was visceral, I felt, and raw, and devastating. And then the moments when they know what's happening with the French and ending and what's happening with the English, and the relief and the tragedy, and Montjoy's crying on the side because of his people, and we're crying with joy with the English. It just, I felt all just brought it together so we could then move into what is the final resolution of, of Catherine and Henry together, and what could be uh, the promise for England. Unfortunately, that's not what happened. Thank goodness for the chorus, because we can't let go of that chorus. You know, really makes a huge impact in that show.
I think I'm going to keep talking about the battle for the because it's so important in the story and such a beautiful climax. So for myself, because I played Uncle Exeter, the Duke of Exeter, Henry's uncle. I got to use a mace, which I've never experienced before, and it's an extremely intimidating weapon that when you swing it, you basically break everything in the path over there. So, I was smashing my mace into shields and swinging it around the stage, and I could hear people going when that was happening because they could feel the weight, and its head was heavy. It probably weighed 15 pounds or something like that. It was a serious piece of weaponry, and it was a lot of fun. But we had to be very well choreographed because if someone misses, on with that thing, it will break fingers or smash your face. It'll be bad. So we went really slow to start, and then we got faster and faster and faster. It was a really really fun part of the play. I'm actually going to go around everyone and I just want to get your. So first of all, tell me, because I know that you played a different role. I know you, Stephanie, you played a character that was in the battle. That was obviously not Catherine. So let's start with Ryan. You were McMorris in the battle. Just tell us a little bit about your experience in that.
Yeah, the battle was kind of the intimidating monolith in this production because it's the thing we literally started with after we finished cutting the script. It was intense, it was upfront, and we all kind of poured one out at the end for Ivan's knees because he didn't have knee pads most of the time. But I think for me, it was something that was so it was fun because I'd done combat before on stage, but I'd never done swords. And this was a really fun first for me. And then the unenviable task of being a lefty, having to learn how to fight as a righty was really interesting because it's also, you realize just from your everyday use how much weaker your weaker arm is that you have to now train up to be able to swing a sword around, and then you're fighting two people at once, and then all these things. And it also just felt like towards the end, I was getting more and more thrown at me because my costume started getting more elaborate. And then I have this helmet on my head, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm feeling pain in my lower back from what it feels like to have this helmet on my head. And then I'm like, oh, I have to have the beanie under the helmet. Otherwise, the helmet's going to fall in front of my eyes, and I can't have my eyes covered while I'm swinging a sword around. But it was one of those things where we, as I think, especially as theater actors, get very, very insistent on trying to make everything look perfect because this isn't a movie or a TV show where you can cut around mistakes or make something feel much more intense or faster by how you edit it. They're going to see every little thing, and you want them to feel it, and you want to be hitting your marks. You want to be doing it all on point because, first off, safety. But then you also just want it to look good. And it was one of those things where so much of the instrument that is your body, you're just aware of where are its vulnerabilities when you start getting into something like this. And I really appreciate how much emphasis Wendy put on warming up before rehearsals because that really saved me. That saved me in so many ways, being able to even get through this show, because not only was this my first Shakespeare show and my first combat show, it was like I didn't realize how physically demanding this was going to be on me, having to do all of these things. And it was a really fun experience, but it's like when you have that moment of realizing we've won after the battle, it's easy to be emotional and exhausted because you are emotional and exhausted after what you've just gone through.
Stephanie, you go ahead. Tell us on which side you were, and then maybe the weapon that you used, and a little bit about the process.
So I was on the English side. I played Llewellyn, and he was a Welshman in the show. I had a lot of fun playing him because I got to be one of the boys and be in the battle, and it was and he's a very very interesting character. But as far as being in the battle, I used a it was a hunting spear. I think Matt he gave me and Terry a hunting spear, like a real hunting spear. And we had covers on the whole yeah on the blades because they were real spears and they were really sharp. But they were supposed to be our pikes because historically they used pikes in the Battle of Agincourt. So, and yeah, so I have a funny story, and you guys all were there for this, but we performed for was it the Music and Arts Festival in Riverside. And when we did the battle, the space we were in front of the gazebo was a lot closer. Um, it was a lot more narrow. Like the spacing was a lot more different than what we were used to in rehearsal. And there was one point where we were in the battle, and I was using the spear, and Damaris, she had swung her. I don't know if she had an axe or something. She swung something and it backwards. Yeah, she had an axe and she swung it backwards, and it hit the spear, and the cover flew off. And I didn't notice at first, and I was like, "Oh no!" But then I as soon as I noticed, I just exited and I went to the gazebo. And when I was putting the cover back on, I like sliced my pinky just from just putting the cover, like barely nipped it. And I was like, "Oh no!" And so I looked at Steve and I was like, "I'm bleeding." He's like, "Oh," and whoever was there, the guy who was working the festival, shout out to him. I don't know his name or anything, but he brought me band-aids and stuff. Yeah, so yeah, so I thought it was funny because then it made me be. I was like, oh wow, that he was not kidding. This blade is super sharp. But then it started to make it more real for me when we were doing we were doing the show, and I was like way more aware of it just because of that experience. So um, I think someone said something about the kids, and Llewellyn had a really big connection with the kids in the show, just throughout the show, and so um, I tried to do a lot of like character background work on why he has a connection with the kids. So my role in the battle part of it was to direct the kids. They had arrows, and they were shooting the arrows at the French. Um, so that was a really cool moment because then when the French actually, when they get to the kids towards the end of the battle, and then we all come out and see them. Llewellyn has a really emotional moment, seeing the kids there, and at first I was like, okay, so why is he the one to yeah, and why was he the one to see the kids and have this emotional moment, be so outspoken about it? And I was trying to find that connection, but then when I realized that Wendy was making me direct the kids and with the arrows, and then there was even a moment in the camp that I had with them, I was like, oh my goodness, Llewellyn's like their stand-in father, like he's like looking after them. So that's why he has such like an outspoken moment with the kids, and it's just like really emotional and breaks down seeing Marina's character. And yeah, so that was for me the battle. A lot of it was just the through line of it made me so emotional. And then like Ryan said at the end when they said we won, it was kind of like, oh, okay, like you are emotional and tired, you put a lot of effort into your story. And yeah, it was fun. I loved it, but very emotional.
Jay, you're not going to escape me on this question. So we're going to go to Jay for a second, just to close the loop on this one over here. So, uh, the big central part of the battle was between you and the Dauphin, or should I call him the Dolphin, which is my insult to him as my character. Was the battle between the two of you? Just incredibly intense, and it looked great. Can you tell us about kind of the journey of that battle, of that fight scene between you and Ivan?
Absolutely. I think honestly, if I have to tell the truth, I pulled a lot of my motivation towards Ivan, towards from a pro wrestling, man. like like the good guy bad, like clear baby face versus a clear heel. Like I mean, like the dolphin makes it no mistake to know that yes, I'm the asshole here. Like I don't know if I can say that. Sorry, but but like it like you're supposed to hate him, and it's like it's almost I almost took the approach of like I had to give the people what they want. Like we knew what the outcome was going to be, but I wanted to make everybody in that seat believe that I was actually going to kill the dolphin in this scene. Like this play has been cut different. Like he doesn't survive this one. And like I wanted to put that doubt there, and Ivan doesn't make it easy because like you can't dislike him. Like he's such a yeah. So he's such a kind kid, So I kind of had to kind of put blinders on, and I talk so much crap about like the method process and stuff like that. Like it should be a switch, turn it on and off. But in order to sell it the way I wanted to, you know how wrestlers like the good guys and the bad guys don't like they won't eat at the same restaurants. Like even though they know it's a show, they won't eat at the same restaurants. They won't travel together to kind of keep that image, that illusion. So subconsciously, I even found myself kind of like not being around Ivan at some points in like the dressing room, like before the scene, like everything else was fine. Before the battle, like just kind of standoffish, just kind of because I don't like I want that disdain to be there. Like I really want to sell this, And bless his heart, man, he hit the ground so many times, and he would not. It wasn't that he didn't wear them. He chose. Like I was like, bro, I got an extra pair. Like he's like, nah, I'm good.
I stepped in, and the team stepped in and said, "You gotta I didn't know.
He had, he had him when his knees were already dust.
Yeah.
Poor kid.
That was his 19-year-old self being a 19-year-old boy.
But
He'll learn.
yeah, he will. About 5 more years.
He'll be like, I need 7 Godspeed. Oh, that's great.
And can I and I just want to make it clear that I did inquire about the mace, but Wendy said that's not what you would use. And so I wanted a mace too. That is a phenomenal looking weapon.
Yeah,
My
it was
gosh.
Sorry. Poor guy.
Well, you got to speak the speech, so I got to swing the mace. I think that's a fair trade. I'm going to switch over to Stephanie. So Stephanie, one of my absolute favorite parts of the show is Catherine's English lesson. It was just such a beautiful moment in there. Can you just tell us about that scene, how you developed the character in that moment, and worked with Terry? Can you please hand you?
So I think one of the first things I did, I did a lot of research with not only on Catherine but people who have played her in the past, and I like to, I like to take what has been done as an artist, and make it my own, but also recognize, oh, okay, this is what the greats have done, so okay, how can I make this my own, and how can I take inspiration from them? So I watched a lot of interpretations of it with different actors, and I really loved Emma Thompson's version probably the most, obviously, because that was kind of the inspiration that Wendy was taking from. But also, when I was learning, because at first I just learned everything as just the French. Like I just learned it. Okay, so if I'm a French person and speaking these lines, this is how I would learn it and how I'd pronounce it, and I made sure to get all the pronunciation correct, and which took a really long time. And even because your natural accent as an American, you're just like, oh, okay, this is I'm seeing this syllable, I'm seeing this vowel, I'm seeing this consonant. I'm like, okay, this is how I'm gonna say it, and your brain just naturally does it. So you have to like reteach yourself, especially with French, because French is so different from English. It's crazy. Um, but yeah, so I learned it just like that, and then all the English, I tried to like mock myself. I'm like, okay, so if I have a French accent, I'm mocking myself. Then this is how I would say this word, like the hand or whatever, you know. So instead of just saying the hand, you know, like we have the wide American accent, I try to do the back of your throat for the French, like hand, you know, because that's how the French would naturally say it. So what vowels and syllables would the French naturally slip into? Um, but yeah, it was fun. It was really challenging though. It was really probably the hardest because I think as an actor, um, I learn through the storyline, you know. So if I'm learning lines, I'm learning okay. So this happens and then this happens, and that's why I say this. Versus just oh, here's words on a page, let me memorize it. It's more of oh, okay. Well, this character said this, and I'm replying to them, you know. But in French, you if you don't know the language, you're like, they said this, but okay, I think this is my next line. So that was really hard at first, but it was really fun.
Okay, so this next question is for Wendy. Um, were there any like unexpected obstacles or anything that was particularly challenging for this one? They always are. So,
Uh, the play was a challenge. Like I said, I knew that it was a challenge, and as I was getting prepped, when I was prepping, it was like I don't know what the hell you're thinking. You know, you can change this play at any time, and I just like really, really wanted to do it. Luckily, I found a lot of joy. Like I said, I watched the Henry V with my best friend when she came in before we were in before we even started casting, and I was like, I love this so much. I really need to do it. But you know, it's cast. There's a couple of issues. It has like 40 characters in it, and they're they're all different, and they're all needed to tell the story I wanted to tell, which is that of humanity, and the story of humanity and about the war being um, you know, being not so great, and what it takes to become a human, you know, and Henry changes that way from being, you know, the aggressive ruler to the human, which is why he didn't have a crown on in the Battle of Agincourt. But you know, getting the ability to cast, like they all had double roles. Every character, every actor had at least two, except for Jay and the chorus. That was difficult to do. Just getting them to be able to do quick changes was a huge thing. It was like, wait a minute, this sounded like a really good idea until you put three-dimensional humans in there, and then you have to get them from literally one scene to the next scene changed into from the Duke of Exeter to Nim,
Yeah.
which are completely different characters, and that was like the biggest challenge was way more than the battle. The Battle of Agincourt, I knew how to do it. Like it was easy, but getting people to be a believable and then not so much because they're so talented, but to get them from literally one scene to the next in a different, completely different character was a lot of work. And we had to change and modify. Like Ryan said, he ended up being in final scenes having lines mainly because we could not get Avery changed and Avery's characters, and Avery played like four. Avery's characters had to be like in, and there was no possible way for them to be able to do that. So it was like, okay, well, how do we modify? Well, we can put McMorris in this, and we can do this, and we can change this and modify. So a lot of the modifications, some of those modifications and cuts and things like that happen really for logistical reasons. And I would say that was the most difficult. And I knew that was going to be difficult. And I did a lot of like, how does this company doing this? And how did this happen? And how can you double this? And okay, well, I need to triple this because I'm only going to cast 10. And which for us is huge because we usually do 8, which I like. But and I knew I felt like artists would enjoy being able to stretch their their um, you know, their creative minds and bodies into something that's different. You're playing one character that's so different from the other. I think for me as an actor, I love that kind of stuff. So, I mean, I would say that's the hugest challenge. Everything else was pretty butter on a hot skillet, but that was, ooh, lordy. We did it though. It was great.
Both Stephanie and Ryan, this was your first time working with Full Circle Players. So first of all, welcome to the family. Can you just tell us a little bit about your journey, maybe even from auditioning and then the process and because you both have deep experience, I'm just curious to learn a little bit about how you feel about the whole process. Start with you, Stephanie.
So I love working with Full Circle Players. I mean, I love working with Wendy. It was a really great experience. But I knew that I wanted to work for this company because, well, I think I talked about this a little bit during the process, but I've always loved Shakespeare and learning about Shakespeare, and I used to, you know, that was part of when I started acting. I was like, I'm an actor first, and I do musicals and now I'm like a choir teacher, I'm in music and all that stuff. So obviously things have changed. But when I first started theater, I remember being in theater and my theater teacher was like, you're an actor who sings, not a singer who acts. And so I loved acting and I loved just being a part of it. So I loved Shakespeare. And in college, I did Shakespeare, and I had a acting professor, and she had basically discouraged me from ever doing Shakespeare. She would give me like stuff from, she would give me like Cleopatra because, yeah, I went to school in Illinois and I'm Hispanic and everyone else was, Caucasian. So, and I was like, okay, well, what should we get Stephanie? Here we go. I guess Cleopatra works, or whatever, like other role that was kind of like, yeah. So she kind of made me feel like I wouldn't ever be a professional in any sort of Shakespeare production. And a lot of in Southern California, I feel like there's a lack of companies wanting to do it, even though it's free. Like just you can do so much with Shakespeare. So that's what I really liked is that Full Circles does a lot of classics or Shakespeare, and so I was like, I really want to be a part of it. I think I auditioned for Hamlet, and I was like, oh my gosh, that would be so cool to be in Hamlet. And then I saw a production of Henry V before auditioning for this Henry V, and I was like, oh, I want to be in this show. Like, it would be really fun. And then during the audition, I had put all the girl characters, and she was like, Wendy said, she's like, we're gonna double cast this, so I hope you don't mind playing a boy. And I was like, oh yeah. Like as soon as she said that, my ears were, I was like, yes, I would love that. That'd be so cool. So but I just didn't know at the time. And yeah, and then like the process, I was really nervous at first because I didn't really know anybody too well. I knew Avery from high school, and that was it. But I hadn't seen Avery since high school. So it was a really cool experience getting to meet everyone. Everyone was so friendly and welcoming, and all our porch talks were really helpful. I feel like it's been a long time since I've been in that company where they actually spend time to get to know and make community with your fellow actors and all the people who are in the production with you. And also the warm ups. I think Ryan said this. The warm ups. Oh my gosh! I was like, I don't need a warm up before a show. And now I'm like, no, I'm gonna warm up before a show because it helps so much. Like you just get in the zone, and even like I had a really long break in the beginning of the show where I didn't go on for a really long time. But even that, doing the warm up, it is like I stayed focused and was like in the character for that amount of time from the beginning of the show, the start of the show, to when I first come in. So it was a really cool experience, and I talk about it positively all the time.
So, for my first experience with Full Circle Players, it was incredibly intimidating until I got cast because you go into the audition and I was a little wondering how this was going to go, and then got asked to come to a callback. I'm like, oh, I guess they want to see more of me. And then at the callbacks, when Wendy's like, this is my 100th play I've ever directed, and I saw this movie 17 times in the theaters, and I'm just like, okay, I know I have experience, but should I be here? Like, is this really where I should be making my first attempt at this? Because I did not have a wide exposure to Shakespeare growing up. My high school curriculum was kind of all over the place. The only Shakespeare play I ever read in high school was Julius Caesar. And then the first time where I really got tapped into Shakespeare, kind of like Wendy, was watching Kenneth Branagh's Much Ado About Nothing. And I just fell in love with that movie and just like, this is fun. This is cool. And when I ended up going to college, I transferred in. So I was only there for 3 years instead of 4 years. And my college's program was there are 2 shows every semester, and you get cast in one of them if you get cast at all. And they only did Shakespeare every other year. So Shakespeare only came up once while I was there. And I didn't get an opportunity to be in As You Like It because I got cast in The Glass Menagerie. So Shakespeare had been something that I had been on for a while that I wanted to do. And I was just over the moon to get to have the first experience getting to do that with first full circle players. But I think, like what Stephanie said, the thing that stands out more than anything is the community aspect of this group of people. It also helps. It also helped having kind of a homey feeling that we were actually having all the rehearsals in Wendy's home, because it just created that ambiance and that vibe, and just really getting to meet the people that I got to work on the show with. Because, like Stephanie, I didn't know any of these people before I got cast in this show, and knew I was gonna have to, like, quote unquote prove myself that I'm supposed to be here with all these vets. But they were so welcoming once we all kind of got to that place where we knew each other. And there is no greater danger or distraction to you trying to pull off your work on a show than when Jay and Jeremy are together doing their shtick. And all of the memories, like, I can never look at Nim or Stevie Wonder the same way again after the show because of those two. And Jeremy, no one else needs to know. But also just like even meeting Pierre. Pierre is an intimidating guy when you first see him, but he is just one of the kindest people that you get to meet. And just bonding over our love of nerdy things and Shakespeare and all the things, and just really kind of feeling that sense of things. And it's not that surprising to me that my therapist tells me that I'm in happier spirits when I'm in a show, because I have that sense of community. Because I feel like so much nowadays everyone's like, oh, I'm busy, I've got all this and I've got this and I've got this and I've got this. And it really takes an effort to build community with people outside of things where you have to be around people, whether it's your job or whether when you get to be in a play and build that camaraderie. So that was the thing that stood out to me the most from this first experience. And it's the thing that I've been missing the most in this last month and a half since we've been doing this show.
My last question for each of you is going to be, is there like a moment that was particularly funny or memorable that just you remember from the show? Anyone? I'm just going to go around. Wendy, anything particular jump out at you?
For me, it sitting out, watching the audience's response. Henry was our PR, like we did our personal record with audience members and reactions and how much money like community came out. I had so many people. Thank you for making this accessible. Thank you for making this available for anybody. Thank you for bringing this. Thank you for inviting me in. I felt invited into this story. Thank you so much for bringing this story here. I didn't realize, I didn't know. To me, watching the audience watch, to hear the gasp, to watch them see the story in a way where it's so accessible to them, where they got the story that was being told. To me, that's what it's about. When we bring that audience in, it brings in the circle of what is theater for me, which is the actor, the text, and the audience. And when they are responding in a positive way and telling their friends and leaving like overwhelmed with emotions, like that's the beauty of the work we do, is to bring an audience and transcend their daily life into something greater than themselves, and they get to do it in a community and be together, and we're all together hearing, telling, experiencing a story in a way that cannot be done in any other vehicle and in any other mode. And that's the most memorable thing, is the audience responding.
Stephanie.
Of a couple funny moments. One was with Ryan, and it was when we first started rehearsals and we were rehearsing our scene, and it was like probably the first time we ever did it. And Ryan, with his your Irish accent, and he just like completely sprays and spits all over me. But I thought, like, I was like, what would Llewellyn do in this moment? And I just like wiped it off and then like turned back to him and like said my line, and with more spite. And it was just like so funny, and we could never like really recreate that that first time we did it, because it was so funny the first time. But it was just like we both just stayed in the moment. Like I could see Ryan was kind of like, oh, like, oh shoot, I'm sorry, but he still like was like in the moment as McMorris. So it was so funny. And then another one was with Jay, since they're both here. There was a moment where there's a moment in the camp scene where Henry's like disguising himself, and he, for some reason, like Llewellyn comes in and tells the other guys to leave, and he turns to Henry, and Henry takes his cloak off. And there was just one moment where like I looked at him and I kind of nodded my head up a little bit too much and a little too quickly, so it kind of looked like, "Hey, brother." Yeah, and then I was like, "Oh my gosh!" So I was like, I hope it didn't look wrong or anything, but yeah, it was just so funny. So those were two funny moments that I remember. I think about those a lot.
Jake, go ahead.
Uh, let's see. Funny moment. Funny moment, of course. There's always one that sets the tone for the entire production, and we got lucky and got it in the first week of rehearsal this time around. Jeremy and I have this thing, Shakespeare is awesome, but what would it be like if somebody had a gun? And in this particular moment, the perfect candidate was Nim. And I don't know if you've ever seen Pulp Fiction, when they're talking to Marvin in the back of the car. That just for some reason, that scene made us think that was Nim in the back seat. And Nim time traveled, and Nim came back with a gun. But since it's Nim, he was doing something, and he trips and shoots himself in the face. And just because Nim had to go away in the show. So the rest of the run, it was just random moments. What Jeremy would say, Nim just shot himself in the face. And it would just make me laugh. That was always a good one. See, I think the biggest moment was the last show. I hadn't been in a show for 2 years before Henry, and the last one was Hamlet. And I don't know, you ever get those moments like some shows, like you don't feel like yourself. You just feel like that one didn't sit right, And I felt like I almost owed it to myself, because I didn't know if I was going to be acting. Like I couldn't wholeheartedly say that I was going to audition again. And I think I wanted Henry so I could prove it to myself. At least walk away on my own terms. Walk away feeling at least I felt better about the last one, And
You ain't done, bro. Not done.
absolutely, absolutely. But I mean, you know, like I'm at a different point in life now, feel better, doing better, living better, eating better, looking better, you know, all that good stuff. So, you know, who knows? Like, you know, we all know to never say never. So, um, I enjoyed it. It felt good again. It felt the way it was supposed to feel. So maybe I'll keep going.
So, funny moments or memorable moments. Jay and Jeremy existing. They also talked about the Beach Boys, and that was pretty funny. Um, I think one of the funnier things for me was as McMorris was I was so like looking forward to proving that I could handle the language of Shakespeare. And I think the funniest thing I ended up doing is me not even speaking at all. It's I would get people saying like, "How did you get under the stage?" I'm like, "I was literally on stage and I walked under it." And they're like, "I didn't notice." And I'm like, "Yeah, because you were watching everyone else running around." And just crawling out on my stomach and just milking that moment for all it's worth. And the sheer number of times backstage or under the stage that I'm just rubbing the beanie on my head to get as much static in there so that when it comes off, I'm just blown up. And that was just a really, really, really fun moment. And I think this is just going to end up being one of the more memorable theater experiences for me because this is the only show that I've ever done where I have a job at the same time as doing this. And considering like opening weekend, I had like 6-hour shifts every day and then coming to either rehearsal or to performances. And by the end of that first week, I was just like, yeah, I'm not mad they're cutting my hours next week because I need to rest after this. And I remember vividly when um when we got into the space for the first time and the interns showed up, and specifically Matthew was just like off the walls excited to be there, and I'm just sitting there like I never remember having that much energy at his age. And anytime I say stuff like that, Terry would be like, shut up. Because I have to remind myself I am still young in the grand scheme of things, even though it feels exhausting sometimes. But yeah, it was just a really, really great.
So for me, you know, I was actually in the play. I played Uncle Exeter and also played Nim as well. Those costume changes were very interesting because I literally had to do this switch, and I think I had like 30 seconds to switch and completely change. I'm very noticeable because I'm big and I'm tall. So for me to hide myself is difficult. And so we had to do something. So we ended up doing a little fake mustache and putting on, you know, a beanie and doing changing the costume. And then my physicality was that. So that's a very memorable moment for me. It's always a challenge, and when you know I'm always up for it. That's why she does it to me. And she's like, "I'm doing this to you." I'm like, "Oh no, how am I going to do it?" And then I think it worked out pretty well. For me, a really memorable moment is going back to when Wendy and I first started talking about Henry V, and I was like, "I've never seen this." She's like, "Oh, you have to see the movie," and I watched it, and I saw Brian Blessed play Exeter, and I immediately fell in love with the character. It's such an iconic, strong, moral, fantastic. I've got your back to Henry at all times, no matter what happens, and he trusts him implicitly. And in the movie, he walks into the French court fully armored. And basically, it's him against the French court walking into the situation. He doesn't know what's going to happen, but he just owns that space. And I'm like, I want to play that character. I want to be that guy. And so when I was cast um, as Exeter, I was so excited to play that character. Walking on stage, surrounded by French in armor, and basically, you know, putting the finger up to them and saying, "This is how it's going to be," was just an awesome moment for me. It felt great. And staring down the French was just a fantastic moment for me. So, I mean, just the whole production, working with Full Circle is an incredible gift. Every time I do something with Wendy, it's always a gift. But that moment in this show was just really special for me. And I really appreciate the Yeah. Oh, Wendy's one more.
So I want to say, and I was thinking is, yeah, the audience response is always just amazing for me. And the other part is when the actors get it. Like when you get it, like it's all of a sudden. It sometimes it feels at the beginning rehearsal, and I know I tend to talk really fast, and I have like a lot of energy, and sometimes I speak in weird language. I don't know my own language. At any rate, so I'm talking and I'll say my vision and all of this stuff really, really fast. And it's like, okay, okay. And then all of a sudden everyone is like it's like I just like yes, I'm just like yes, and I'm snapping and I'm so excited because the soliloquy turns out, or we have the moment in rehearsal when Jay did Crispin's Day the first time, and we were all in tears because it was so brilliant and just perfect. And when all the work just comes together, and it's like it's this energy that cannot be described. It's humanity at its best, and it's what we strive for, I think. And that's 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 my drive. That's what keeps me going. Okay, what's next? What's next? What's next? What's next? Like next. I need another experience like this. Yeah, and the addiction. So yeah, thank you all for blending your incredible talent to Full Circle Players and all the artists who are involved with it. Every single one so unique and beautiful, and bringing your your life and your story and your heritage and your culture and who you are as human beings into a space to create stories and to tell it like it'll never ever be done again, ever. It'll never be like that again. That's special. So it's all memorable. So thank you all for being brilliant, and I appreciate all of you.
Can you maybe give us a little glimpse of the coming season for Full Circle?
I'm so excited. So like we started with one play. We did one. We did Mary Waters of Windsor. We did Othello. We did one show, and then the next year we did the free Shakespeare, which is my passion, is bringing Shakespeare into the communities and doing it for free. And I have done Shakespeare in the Park a lot over my career, but always everybody wants to charge money, and I'm like, but people deserve Shakespeare. They deserve to be able to have access. So we do free Shakespeare. And that's really, really important. It will never cost money to see our Shakespeare show in the summer, ever, ever. At least better never. I will write it in my will. I'm leaving the company, but there will be free Shakespeare. So at any rate, it's really, really important to me that we have access. We voted. So I am also a deep, deep lover of August Wilson. August Wilson and his imagery and his storytelling and his humanity. And I just got to see the piano lesson on TV last night. I tried to see it at When I Was Within. They're the only other company that's doing August Wilson. I think every company should do August Wilson. And so I kept thinking about it, and I was just like, I'm going to approach and see if we can do it. And we are. So we're going to do Fences. August Wilson's Fences, and it's going to be directed by the illustrious J.K. Weldon. And we have an incredible team working together. I get to be the producer, dramaturge, and set and costume designer, which I'm so excited about. Love that I get to hand over reins to incredible, brilliant artists who are going to breathe life into the story of this man, this man and his story. I'm so excited for this. I can't even tell you. And that goes up in February, end of February, beginning of March. It is one weekend as we test this space out, is what it's going to be. Very much a place for edgy plays. I want it to be the edgy, raw, just like not what everybody else is doing, just like really touching deep stuff, depending. And it's not always going to be August Wilson, it's going to be different things. So we're testing this out, and I'm hoping this is going to be received by the community, and then we'll be able to grow it. Then we're going to have the New Play Festival. So if this gets out before January, hopefully and you're a playwright, please submit. We're taking 30 playwrights this time. We did 25 last year. We're doing 30. We're already set up to read those plays, and the New Play Festival will happen in May. Again, we're not sure of the dates yet. We have to work with the city and with the box specifically, but it'll be very much like before. But the winner of last year, Romeo Mayber's Our Ladies of Sorrow, will be the feature play, and I get to direct that. So I'm super excited. But we're going to be having 4 new directors who are going to be directing the staged readings of the 4 finalists. So I can't wait to see what kind of new voices are coming out into the Inland Empire. We had 2 of the plays last year move on and get fully produced. So I love being the voice and the beginning of something that gets to be, in Counting Romeo's 3 fully produced. So that's exciting. Our summer play you guys all voted for, and it ended up being Romeo and Juliet. This will be my 5th time doing Romeo and Juliet, but I have a completely different way of approaching it. More sword fighting. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited. A lot of sword fighting. I'm so excited for Romeo and Juliet. It is one of my favorite Shakespeare plays. It still is. It's so beautiful. There's something about that love. And then we're going to have a repertory company. We're doing Luis Alfaro's Mojada, Medea in Los Angeles, an adaptation of Euripides' Medea. Then in Los Angeles, it is directed by Steve Yamis. And we will do that in rep with Matthew Johnson's Lazarus Rising, which is a zombie play. It's actually, like he says, it's a family drama with zombies. Figuring out how to do that is going to be our challenge for this year. It's a very bloody play, but it's also really, really cool. So that's how we're getting groovy this year. We are also doing a directing master's workshop, and there will be a Shakespeare workshop. We're doing a playwright workshop that's on Zoom, offered for free to the community. The Shakespeare workshop will be up. And then whatever we do, we're hoping to open an arts conservatory. So that's our real big focus, finding a space to open the arts conservatory. So that's what we're doing. We're kind of driving and grooving and growing. So join us.